And so the mode of asserting the object possessor. So object possessor has a person and mind, right? We talked about the person, right? The person. What do they assert as the person? And so the false expectorian says the mental consciousness, and the true expectorian says the mind basis of law. And now going to the mind, right? Consciousness. So we talked about person, and now to consciousness. They say the mind, the mother has the two types of mind: valid and not valid mind.
아니 녜슬라 시 다 찌지 와사도 밀리 버 쳔메디 이데 치파 말이
Then
이놈도 와
맞습니다.
쳔메티도 사도 밀리 버 바치 잉바치 바 말이 내나다 요모도 다 쳔발라 녜서 쳔마 제버버다 다 녜슬라 시 오레스
Then there's the two types of the valid cognizer, so valid direct perceiver and valid inferential cognizer. There are four types of direct perceivers: self-cognizing direct perceiver and yogi direct perceivers are provided by non-mistaken consciousness.
아니 라링에다 나중에들라 아니 마티비시비 잡장 소소 시부지 온봉에들은 트지지 잡으세
The self-cognizing direct perceiver and yogic direct perceiver are provided by non-mistaken consciousness, but sense direct perceiver in ordinary beings continuum are provided by mistaken consciousness.
이징에들라 어다티지 이징에들라 투마트니 오스로
And then there are two types of the mental direct perceivers in ordinary beings continuum: mistaken consciousness and non-mistaken consciousness.
아 온봉에서 쳔메디 온봉에서 트시 차서 받아 남중원데 오바드 다시 마티비리 바 온봉에서 쳔메디 이러와 어디 샤이면도 온봉에서 트시에나 로시에고 말
And so now, because if it is a sense direct perceiver of the ordinary continuum, right, of the ordinary being continuum, then it has to be mistaken, right, mistaken consciousness. So then you can't say non-mistaken. What was the direct perceiver's definition? What's that? So a cognizer that is non-mistaken and free of conceptuality, right? So that has to be, that is the sense direct perceiver. But now in here because it says it's mistaken, that doesn't those two doesn't get along there now.
예. 아 또바다 자와이 맞지 맞지 빼나. 맞지 빼차차는 번즈미시다오데 아니 트시에 relag다. 번즈미시다오데.
And so like when the eye consciousness sees the cup, right? It's non-mistaken. In the other tenets, it's non-mistaken, but here it is mistaken. So like when you are looking at the cup, the cup, the eye consciousness that sees the cup is non-mistaken. But here it says mistaken. It's a mistaken, but it's not the wrong conception.
예, 같이 내나. 내 idea.
Why? It's not mistaken. It's mistaken, but it's not wrong.
대라야 발전이 예쁘나. 자진 투지도. 내가 가는 공부나 오시나다. 가는 공부티. 다 내가 투시쇼 내가 계속 땡 투지로 왔어. 이렇게 참 말했는데.
So usually when we talk about the direct perceiver that is mistaken, be like if you see on a snow mountain as blue, because of maybe some lens of glass that you're wearing or something else, right? Because of that, then that you can see it. That's mistaken. Right?
Did you see that was wrong consciousness?
That's mistaken consciousness. Yeah, in that case it will be both, yeah, mistaken and wrong.
단디 두세 반 네가 반 또바다 다시 바자 템발라시 오실라 바자 나 쇼트데 저 저기 바자 야만 가다다들 바자 템보 무슨 말이지 근데 바자 잡로 요한테 대왕가 네 와시 강가나 만두 하고 마다 쇼트데 반하게 오셨어 얘는 되게 자서 말해라 그런도 더 먹지.
And so the reason why it is mistaken is because even though we're not aware of it, but whatever things that appear to us, we think of that as external object, and thinking of that as external object is already mistaken. And that's because of the strong imprint that we have behind our mind, and which makes us think of that as being external object. And when you think of that as being external object, then that's already a mistake. And therefore, it says all the sense consciousness of the ordinary being is mistaken. And why? Because that appears as external object. And the reason why it appears as external object is because of the propensities left in the previous slide. Then the mental consciousness, now we're talking about the sense consciousness, right? All the sense consciousness of the ordinary being is mistaken, but the mental consciousness, there are two. And so all the mental consciousness, that's led by sense consciousness. All the mental consciousness that's led by sense consciousness, that comes from the sense consciousness, it's all mistaken consciousness. Then, so like the non-mistaken mental consciousness would be like a clairvoyance, the clairvoyance mind, like that knows or that can read the mind of others. So it says direct perceiver are not pervaded by a valid direct perceiver. A valid direct perceiver, because although there are form apprehending mental direct perceiver in ordinary beings continue, there are no valid form apprehending mental direct perceiver in ordinary beings continue. The direct perceiver are not pervaded by valid direct perceiver. The direct perceiver and valid direct perceiver, right? Direct perceiver is not pervaded by a valid direct perceiver. It's like all the direct perceiver are not necessarily valid direct perceiver. Although there are form apprehended mental direct perceiver in ordinary beings continue, there are no valid form apprehended mental direct perceiver in ordinary beings continue. You got that? So it is the way of the tenets, and when you go into detail, searching or investigating about it, then it becomes more complicated. So you just accept that that's what they assert. By understanding, by hearing that, or understanding that, you leave imprint in your mind. Okay, so then an ordinary being self-cognizer experiencing a form apprehended mental direct perceiver, the second moment of the form apprehended direct perceiver of an ordinary being valid cognizer. And then there are four types of yogic direct. Well, there are four types of yogic direct perceivers. And there's a very yogic direct perceiver that clearly realizes subtle impermanence. The subtle impermanences that keep changing all the time, right? Moment by moment, keep changing. Right now, what we see is only the growth impermanence. When there's big changes happening, then we understand that, we see that. But like you said, this cup is impermanent, it's changing moment by moment. We don't see that. And that's a subtle consciousness. Subtle impermanence. like the gross impermanence is the changes that we can see easily, like the change of the weather or the house falling down and so forth. So those are the gross impermanence.
아 가다 다음에 참모 생각하니라.
Then now the second one is the 정답이라고 합니다.
그대로 저버려도 내가 좀
내가 뭐 참모지 아니 가서 다음에 라고 하지. 아니 가서 다음에 라고 참모.
링게들 기대시 재미도.
아.
아니 가다 다음에 라바도 가래.
Then it is the gross selflessness of person. And what's the gross selflessness of person?
Purpose, intended.
아주 나오집니다.
You think the rock
It is the aggregate. 뭐
Bob,
agree with Jennifer.
but you got 군인을 가로
아주 나오지.
나처럼 라바들어. 다 가다라체 아니 가다 되면 참모 가래. 라바듯이.
Yeah, that's correct. So that's the considering person as being the permanent and partless and independent. Then what is the subtle substance of person?
Yeah, you guys. Who can say? Margaret, Jennifer, or Deborah? Anyone have? Okay, said Jennifer.
It's a self-sufficient, substantially existing person.
Yeah. What the Rajat with what? Tell any Tama. And they take Kangan Dosa Chibata, tell him the Kama. You say Shanaga Chibashagris.
Yeah, so that is it. So the empty of self-sufficient and substantially existing person.
Guys got it?
Selflessness, the subtle selflessness of the person.
I choose you down to Manajong the Carrot. I choose you down, you got choose them as the candidate.
And what is the selflessness of phenomena?
This is that's the touch of the body. Got a touch of it.
This is the selflessness of the phenomena. Is the most subtle one, right? What is the selflessness of phenomena? Yes. Huh? You see, there are two selfless of phenomena.
You can say.
True selflessness of subtle, two subtle selfless phenomena.
The emptiness of the subject and object being different entities, different substantial entities. And also, would you say that emptiness of phenomena existing by way of its own character as the basis for computing? You said, I thought it was on
유해진이 다됐다고 그러나?
page 13, it said that
그 대신 동방당 아니 가서 수시전도
때리다. 이 주의 담에다 때리. 간제 수도 대신 동화세도. 수도만 대신 동이 따고.
So considering the mind and the object that is abandoned mind, considering these two as being different substances, is to be abandoned, right? So the emptiness of that, is the subtle form.
시라면 덴바트와 동화콜라요 말. 이게 차슈데 조다도 좀 대신 동이 주의 담에 참고해 자고다.
Yeah, so this is the subtle substance of phenomena, is the emptiness of the different substances of the subject object.
It's on page 13. It says examples of subtle substances of phenomena. It is the emptiness that is form and form apprehending valid cognizers empty of being other substances. But it also says an emptiness that is form's emptiness of existing by way of its own character as the basis for assigning the term form.
그래서 수식을 다 주셔서
집에 단주변 주시는 거 되게 또.
어디?
대니기도 찾아오다 간지.
이至少
진짜죠. 지대 왕실하셔. 지대 이실하셔.
Yeah, so those, yes, those two are the subtle, most subtle ones. Most subtle. So one is referring to the sense consciousness, and the other is referring to the mental consciousness.
내 니콜라 빼면서 니코데 장애레신이 뭐냐 빼 세워지. 근데 지름 보지라 같이 가로. 같이 시대 손제세 됐다 니 내니 가자 심든 가자 참모 문제 더 와도 니 일한 거지. 주당 맞으면 되지 또 와다. 그리고 저한테 또 비시랑 되게 또 와대. 다 심든 가자 참모. 근데 지름 보지. 다 장애레신이 뭐라서 그래서 싸워지다. 같이 시대 손제세 됐다 세대 더 와요.
And so, so this is the most subtle object of negation. And Ghost Lama Tsongkhapa explained this very clearly in the essence of the eloquence on interpretive and definitive meaning by Lama Tsongkhapa. And therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa was given this title of being the pioneer, the pioneers of the land of Snow Mountain.
잉엘라야 베게 개바 sikangya semtemiga tawa tashu de musum tawa maresi.
Before that, prior to that, no other scholars of Tibet has been able to realize or explain clearly like that.
제가 다 주지담다 제가 몰라야 되거든요.
You saw that in the page 13 here, in this text.
강도 그래.
Yeah, it's under the
Oh,
definition of ultimate truth, and you go down and it says examples of subtle selflessness phenomena are, and it gives.
oh yeah. That's right. Yeah, the emptiness that is a form, and it is form apprehending value cognizers, emptiness of being other substances, and the emptiness that is a form's emptiness of existing by way of its own characteristic, as the basis for assigning the term form. See, Mark?
Oh,
You don't see that?
Is that-
well, I have two.
Oh, you have a different house.
I have two, so I gotta figure out which one.
Oh, you-
You saw it, Rika? You saw that? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's very important to kind of memorize that, so you know exactly what we're talking about.
Okay.
In Tibetan, we always say very quickly, but in English, you're like word for word, one by one. Like that. So it's like it's custody. The emptiness that is a form and its form apprehending value cognizers, emptiness of being other substances.
같이 다들 고대오지나 같이 주도 맞으면 되지 또 원실하셔. 주랑도 또 배시자랑 같은 일 도는 이실하셔. 근데 또면 원실다 또 배시라서 이제.
수수식을 나가서 다주 주시랑기 신이 아니 신이도 뭐.
다들 또면 원실 또면 이실할 때네. 근데 가장 것도 제다지. 주도 되지 또나 아니 또 배시라.
원실.
또 원실할 때네.
And so these two, the first one is referring to the sense consciousness, and then the second one is to the mental consciousness.
니콜라도 다 당연히 모두 나 빼면서 예원에서 빼 잡아요. 내가 온 것이야 되는 말이.
And so the eloquent speech of the definitive and the essence of the definitive interpretive meaning explains it really clearly and very not easy to understand from here just like that.
오케이. 아대야 캔다시 오더라. 제바테마라 또 배치자. 취들라 제바는 취들라 오바면 맞아서 다 담아도 제바테 다 떠돌라 제바 이제 tel라 또 말이스. 나들로 지셔셔도.
Then there's another complication here. It says that valid inferential cognizers are prevented by conception, right? It has to be a conceptual mind. But if it is an inferential cognizer with respect to a phenomena, it is not necessarily a conscious conception with respect to that phenomena, because although an inferential cognizer relies on sound to be impermanent, is an inferential cognizer with respect to the sound's emptiness of permanence. It is not conception with respect to that.
근데 대신 단도 시단 대신 뭐뭐요 단데래 간제 아니 또바이나 telling to share go res 제자 자 못하바토비 제바들이 이게 다타도 아니 넘버 샤고 말스 슈라 또바이다 아니 텔라 또바 말스.
And so if it is a conception, then it has to be clear or obvious. That's what it's saying. Like when you say sound is impermanent, right? When you say sound is impermanent, that's clear. That's saying it, or it's obvious, right? But then from there, you also understand that sound is not permanent, right? Indirectly, you understand that sound is not permanent, but directly, what you're saying is that sound is impermanent, right? So you realize the sound is impermanent. That's direct. And so therefore, that's conception. But the understanding from that statement, you also understand that sound is not prominent, and but that is not conception.
Okay.
Because it's not direct.
That Dhamatato is a Dhamatato needs to tell that he should have that Tabito and Batoris. Jeda de la Toba Maris, Jebaris.
So, so that understanding, right? So because of that syllogism, right? The sound is impermanent because it's a product, and you also understand that sound is not permanent, and that is inferential cognizer. No, so it's inferential. From that, you are inferential in inference to understand that sound is not permanent, and but it is inferential, but it's not conceptual. So earlier it says the valid inferential cognizer are provided by conception, right? So, but that kind of inferential cognizer is not conception.
Okay. That's it. Okay. Aje Toba na ani karo. Namashakur. Namashakur Toba Maris, Jebaris.
It has to be direct, and it has to appear. It has to. The aspect of that has to appear. The aspect of the not being permanent doesn't appear. What appears is the impermanent, right? The aspect of being impermanent appears, but the aspect of not being permanent, it doesn't appear. And so, in order to be a conception, it has to appear. This is different from the Sautrantikas and Vaibhashikas, right?
Conception be anything you want it, like if you were conceiving about buildings. It's your conception, you can look at it from any angle.
똑바로는 만졌다. 말다 먼저 지금 섬당 말이나 지금 쌤기 지금 맞지 지금 섬당 말인데 똑같이 그래. 똑바기 미기 한 번씩 뭐지 통과했나? 똑바로 해서.
이거 통과해. 이 통과말 대왕셔래. 같은 통과로. 똑바한테 마 대대로 가려야지. 이 말은 내가 샤야도 내가 똑바로.
Conception, is when you see with your bare eyes the building, that's not conception. That's a direct, perceiver, right? The perceiver with the sense direct perceiver. The conception is something that you don't see directly, but you saw a building and then later you come back, oh, that building is so nice. You still appear that in your mind, so that is conception.
Or mathematics, like I can conceive of it.
Exactly, yeah. So the reasoning is conception. The reasoning here we're giving, that reasoning, 윤석거 어디 똑같이 걸어. 그래 맞아. 제가 똑같이 걸어.
제가 삼주에 대 똑바로 될 똑바 이거 그래. 단디 제가 똑바 이거 말해서 다 생각 그런 게 똑같이.
So yeah, like the mathematics, when you say you have the 2 + 2 is 4, like that, no? Go ahead. So that's in your mind, right? So it's a conception. But if you see it on the board, maybe then it's not conception. Right? When you're thinking in the mind, that's conception. And the reason, so it's not clearly, and it's not obvious, you can see with your eye. It's in your mind. Oh yeah, sound is impermanent because it's product. So that's reasoning, right? That reasoning is conception. So earlier it's saying that if it's an inferential cognizer, it has to be conception. So inferential means reasoning, right? So we say, oh, this is it because it's like that. So that's inference. And when you do that, it has to be conception. But but when you come to understand through that syllogism, when you come to understand that sound is not and sound is impermanent, and you also come to understand that it is not permanent, right? So that the same reason is the same reason the sound is not permanent because it's a product. If it's a product, it should not be permanent like that, So it works that way also. So that is inferential, but it's not conception. That is saying that, but it's not conception because it is not directly said. Indirectly, you understand that, but directly what it says is the sound is impermanent.
Okay.
Yeah.
아니 말아와치라다 아니 수수지우질라 내세나 지제고 레스테커 말아와치라서.
So that's the difference, different from other schools. And then the other thing is that, like, even though it appears directly to us, to our higher consciousness, the sense consciousness of the ordinary being is mistaken.
아니 게임게 담에 바자셔다가 아니 꾸준함지 시바시마 있고 그래서 영화시가 말 예시가 말했어.
And then the other big difference, is the mind basis of all, right? So that holds holds all the imprints of the positive and negative karmas, right? And that is neither sense consciousness nor mental consciousness. So that is different, totally different from other schools.
예. 아니 이가라 대가 다드는 단데 아니 예사지 그래서 시바제 그래서.
So then there is there's the mind base of all, and then on top of that there's the afflicted mind, right? So the 8th group of consciousness.
Okay, this is like special things for them. Common. That the whole damage the day any Kansa damage translation Rajiba mature Rajiba Semsoma. Any then Jeramon the Chipa Isra.
And so their manner of the 6th one is the mode of asserting selflessness. It's their manner of positing examples, of the gross and subtle selflessness of person is like that of the systems, the Savatandika and Savatandika Madhamika and below.
Eh? 아니 다 취지 담으신 세지 수당수지 맞듯이 또 돈이 다 watching 샤문도네.
An example of the selfless of phenomena, is the emptiness that is form and it's the form apprehending value recognizes emptiness of being other substances.
Okay. That's it. Any questions? You have some question? You don't get anything? You guys have any questions? Looks you guys very good at now, maybe not at anything. Okay, Jennifer.
I want to ask a question about it says in the 4 types of direct perceivers, it says sense direct perceivers in ordinary beings continuums are pervaded by mistaken consciousnesses, like we were talking about. But say you're an Arya being on the path of seeing, so the first ground, and let's say you're in subsequent attainment, so you're not in meditative equipoise, still sense objects still have the appearance of duality. Or do they stop?
Then 세웁니다. 다시 시당 좀더 심한 좀 주제에 걸어서 그런 게 빠져온 거. 이나고 배제나 세워 게임도 정말 이거 요새기 여러분.
So yeah, I mean, it's not really clearly explained here in this text about that, but yeah, in some other texts it says that there can be both mistaken and unmistaken.
한제벨리는 근데 섬지지 원실을 드시면 차그랬어. 한제벨리는. 아버지한테 드시 차대. 굴러서 가로.
So according to the Prasangiga Madhyamika school, all the sense consciousness of the sentient being is necessarily mistaken.
Even Arya.
이거다 야야. 단테는 소소지 원래 작을했어. 단 법을 용의 명의 미니오면.
Here we're talking about the ordinary being, right? In this text it says ordinary beings, right? So
Yeah,
ordinary beings. So then the Arya beings, there could be yes and no.
yeah, it says ordinary beings, so I was
Yeah.
just wondering if that was true for Arya
Yeah.
beings as well.
Ordinary beings, beings who have not realized emptiness, right? So, or self-sufficient substantialism in this case. So for them it is, for them, there's some scholars say yes, some scholars say no.
Yes.
What is the subtle, the yogic direct perceiving, the subtle selflessness of person?
So, like earlier Jennifer talked about, we're talking about that self-sufficient, because the self-sufficient and substantially existent. The emptiness, the person empty of self-sufficiently and substantially existing.
이제 강사한테 풍부한 마티와 저번에 별로들한테 참고 참으라. 강사 풍부가 다들 마티 들지 마. 어떤 강사 풍부한 마티 마다 좀 들지 마.
So if it's a self-supporting, means independently, right? Independently existing, without depending on the aggregates. So if you see the person, self-supporting without depending on the aggregate, so that's a self-supporting.
Why I ask is that like a lot of these things don't come, how you say something's implied, but it doesn't say it. Reason I ask is what's really implied is that there's no such thing as a person. So then is our mind part of like a singular mental entity? It doesn't come out and say it, but it implies it.
So you have to go to a particular school. So this school, there is a person.
강사도 돼요.
So there's a person. This school we're talking about now, minor school, says there's a person. And what is the person in this school? We just went through this.
That's what it is. The seventh mind consciousness.
Huh? What is the person? Illustration of person here.
The mental.
There's the two, right? The
And then
true
the
expectorant
mind-
and the
mind basis, and then the kleshas.
yes, yeah.
which
So
goes to
the true
standards.
expectorant says the mind basis of all is the person. Yeah. So there is a person there.
그래서 풍부 되는 게 강사한테 풍부를 때들 놓으셔. 풍부를 맞대고 놓으셔. 마셔도 나라자 됐죠. 제가 때 놓으려 시원한 풍부 된 거라. 풍부를 때니
The mind basis isn't a person. Okay, does it have a will?
열어, hold on. 너가 열어.
뭐야 돼.
So 걸어서 내 근신함실 너가 열어.
야, 그걸 설주꾼 농아요.
Yes, it has a will.
농아냐.
Yeah, mind basis of all. Yeah, it has all this accompanying mind. The omnipresent mental factors.
No, by itself.
Who?
The mind basis by itself.
Mind basis of all. Yeah.
Has
So,
no
but
will.
it has to depend. It is not self-supporting. That's what it is. If it is self-supporting, then it should not depend on anything. So there's no such things. There's no person that is self-supporting. The person has to depend on other things. Like other aggregates.
Right, it's
Yeah. So it's not self-supporting. That's why.
consciousness is dependently arising.
Yeah, dependently arising. Exactly. Yeah.
그래서
So
막 설려나. 막 누구 태웠다. 그 시대에 온 시대에는 그 파트너 어떻게 들으면 때 때문에 때만 시바 그 시대에도 대례에서 컨트롤합니다.
they are saying that this one, the minority school, the true expectorant, especially saying that where is mark, and they're pointing, is the head mark or the eye or the body or the leg or the mind, which one? Is it the eye consciousness? So none of those are stable. There's this stable thing, mind, that's called mind base of all, which comes from past life to this life, goes to next life. So that is mark.
내 시바요. 네가 바차가 샤요. 다다처럼 그 로조 전에 되는 야대요.
So that mind basis of all in you holds all the imprints. So all the study you're doing now is held in there.
셴바치가 오마리 이지 시바진도 대례에서 이지 납시대.
The other true false expectation is saying that no, it's not the mind basis, it's the mental consciousness.
So me and Jennifer, Bob, everybody, we had the same experiences for 100,000 years. And we had similar programming. So you're saying there'd really be no essential difference between us.
뭐라, 정말 집어 뭐라고, 소소하하 여라.
매트걸로 가는 거, 사만로 가는
It's totally different.
거.
Your mind base of all is yours. You know? His mind base of is his. Her mind base of all is hers only. It's not one.
나 지나 도모만 지나 배치 다서 나도 토고 말라 그랬어. 토고 말했어. 지난 그 바차 세버렸는데 지난 그 배치 다 잘라 나도 토고 말했어.
So the
It's very
things that's uncommon, things that you experience only, is not seen by us. So your karma to experience that happens, and then you experience that, and nobody can see that.
도모마다 도모 많이 받는다. 도모 많이 받은 지나 주보 배치 나.
The common, you were talking about the common and uncommon earlier. So the uncommon is only you. Common one, we all see it like this house, but uncommon is only by each individuals.
It's not
So there is
easy.
individual, so it's not everybody is not one.
I think for the longest time in studying, I've always had like a difficult time thinking that, well, mind is mind. And so at some point, all of our minds have to be one. I have a hard time with individual minds.
No.
It's totally different. 하는 가도 소소 남들라 밑에 가도 소소 이한테 소소 로조 각각 실제입니다.
Well, there's all these different people, and like 7 billion people in the world, all different 7 billion like different minds. So we all have different knowledge, different experience, and all these things. So it's totally different.
Okay. Yes, Bob.
So I'm wondering if there are no external objects, or no, if the sense perceptions are all sort of not of anything separate from the mind, then how do ordinary beings communicate with each other? As if when I hear a sound, it's coming, it's not external to my own mind. Means it can't come from a different sentient being. So how can I communicate with a different sentient being, with a different mind?
Question. 그냥 먼저 더 그런 게 다디어라. 그런 게 다지 거의 계절 나도 그네. 먼저 고라. 나도 먼저 내 돈 많이 받아. 내 과차 사원들은 고라. 나디. 안테네 거기서 하고 와 말았어. 그게 라디 라인 저랑 이 고들라는 거를 하고 가서 그런 거 하고 말해. 저랑 먼저 고금 말더니 가지고 대화 치고 있어.
내가 자유한테 근데 내 나도 가도 인간적 바차 세버렸는데 자도 이 바차 세 맨날 자기 고요 말.
난 다들 그런 게 그거거든요. 거의.
그거다 그런 게.
거의 저랑 거의 나도 거의 그거를.
그 지난
저랑 저와 거의 나도 거의 막거든요. 전혀 그래서 대화 치고 있어.
지난 거에 자기 그거 그랬어. 네.
저랑 거의 나죠라. 거의 그거를 막거든요. 전혀 그래서 대화 치고. 그런 게나 거의 레벨에서는 저랑 레벨하는데 막고 있는데 거의 레벨 할게 진짜 저랑 그래서 하고 그랬어.
그래 그 레벨은 게 레벨에서.
저 거의 레벨하고 나도 막이 등거라. 거기 나도 그거라. 이 자리 저랑 그거라다. 레벨은 그거라 맞죠? 막고는 저랑 레벨 나오라 이게 말해라. 하고 뭐라. this is 나도 돈 많이 받아. 소스 좀 남겨나. 나 제대로 남기면은 되는 가르쳐주는 과정.
어때야 안에 그러가 투모면다 이거 투모에 내서는 내 거에 소셜.
So it has to be then common. They were talking about uncommon and common. So that has to be common for you to be able to communicate with each other. So if you say yes, and then he understands, he has to hear yes also, right? And you're saying that, oh yeah, I'm saying yes, and he's saying, oh yeah, you're saying yes. So you both have to hear the sound, yes, right? So so that has to. So from your, so you have to have the karma created to hear the sound, yes, and he has to created the karma to hear that sound, yes. So that has to be like common for both of you to hear that yes, for both of you. So if you have not created a karma, then you will not hear it. Or if he has not created a karma, then he will not hear it.
다 텔레 투모만 비치거든. 지나 정말 대고에 게 고요 말했어.
But if it is something that only you can hear, you can't hear, then that has to be uncommon. That will be uncommon. So uncommon one, you can only hear yours. If it's your uncommon karma, then it's only you hear it. And the Geshe will not be able to hear it.
나 나들은 bên 밥 계시나 밥 계시 시에 되는 게 거는 동도 먼저 대고도 나 샘도고 많이 나 얘가 봐셔도 샘만에 그게 너무 많으네 하면
So like we say, because you said it, that's why I can hear it, right? But it's very interesting because let's say if I didn't have an ear consciousness, will I hear it? No, right? And so I have to have the karma to hear. If I don't have the karma to hear, I will not hear it. Even you say 100 times, I will not hear it. So that my karma has to ripen, for me to hear that. And that's what mindfulness is saying.
그럼 봐자 나도 봐자 내지지 봐자 봐자 먹고 세 봐자 먹으면 된다
So then there is of course different layers of imprints. The imprint at this moment and at that moment, later moment, earlier moment, all these different kind of imprints. All those have to ripen. Like very similar to when you're sending a package. When you do it, like it has to go through this and that, and it has to then eventually it gets delivered there. It's like that. You have to have this karma or imprint, we call in this context, has to be ripened. When that ripens, then you can hear the sound.
Yeah, but it's very complicated. Okay. Anyway.
Same as not being able to see Maitreya.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly. Any question you guys have? That's very quiet. That. Okay, if you don't have question, now we go to the homework. First homework. Remember, couple of weeks ago was the first homework.
This question was, they assert that all things are common bases of truly existent and false. And the question is, how is it truly existent?
And then both of you, then but one, then vision that can see. Can't one. You both of you, then but then vision that can see. Then but one, then vision that can see.
You walk the way. You do the way.
Yard road. They share one.
You do the way.
Yard road.
Oh.
You can do some march.
Do you see that in the text?
Yeah, under the definition of the conventional truths, and it says there's two divisions of conventional truth.
Yes.
And then below that, they assert that all things, so all other phenomena.
Basis of truly existent, right? And false, yeah.
Yeah. What means that?
You asked me.
Okay, Rika, do you have? You find anything?
What I came, read was a truth for the conventional truth, the truth for concealers. That the concealer is the concealer consciousness, actual ignorance. To the point of view of ignorance, perspective of ignorance, consciousness. The truth.
Marimbala, then Dembares. Zumbares. Zumbares.
That's good.
Make sense?
I think that
No.
That works.
Could
You
you
don't think
repeat? I
that'll-
couldn't hear the Rika's answer. Could you repeat that? It was, what I read was the truth for concealer, the concealer consciousness, that conceal the truth. So it's that perspective, ignorance consciousness, it's true, it's a conventional truth, but it's false.
You understand that now?
I
You
understood.
guys hear that?
I didn't understand the reasoning, but I understood the words.
Yeah, she's saying that it's true to the ignorance, but it's false. In other words, right? It's true, it's truly existent, and to the ignorance, the concealer or to ignorance mind, but it's false.
The problem with that is that conventional truths that are imaginaries, which would be the imputational phenomenon, then they would be truly existent too, but they're not. Like if you use that rationale by saying that conventional truths are true, then that would have to apply to the
Oh, what is the Harvard? What's your homework question? Answer. Harvard from David here. Tell us more.
The most of the some of the top of my squad.
What's your answer?
I say they're truly existent in the sense that they are
Zumba is, Zumba is.
truly existent in the sense that they're not merely imputed by conceptuality.
What about it? So top of the marriage, they just double was.
They do exist by their own, on their own side.
I want to go.
Tobe Tatum,
I'm
my barometer, and the debate is. The Dumakacha,
I'm going to do it.
the Dumakacha.
But it's not merely imputed, right? Not merely imputed, and existing from its own side. So that's what they accept, right? In other school, maybe it's not true, but in this school, my knowledge school, says that existing from their own side, is truly existent.
It's good.
It's a true existence.
About
Zumba Manda, of course.
that Dumakacha.
And then, so now that is truly existent, right? But it's false also. So why is it false?
False in the sense that it appears dualistically, it appears to be external,
Children do it.
to be a different substance than.
Children do it. Now, I'm going to Zeta de Ba. Zeta de Duba, Zeta de now. Zeta de Duba now. That's the Eugene Zeta de Duba now.
Okay, that's good. Bob,
I'm not sure if this was the same answer, thinking they're the same nature, phenomena are the same nature or substance as the mind. Mind is truly existent, therefore phenomena the same nature as substance, they're also truly existent. Of course, they're false because they appear to be external.
The same, the same partial the usual or Tindi, because Zeta did know it, so the mind and the phenomena, right, that appears from that come from the mind, that come from the imprint happening from the mind, right? Is that what you're saying?
They're the same substance.
The same substance. They talk about the gene, but it double. That they borrow on that. I should know it. Shouldn't know it.
how are you guys? Any answers? Sarah, do you have answer? Margaret, do you have? Michelle, you have? You're looking for? Andrew, you have? Bonnie, do you have? Melinda has? Okay, you guys
I
quiet.
have, yes, I
Yeah.
have. Yes, sir.
Okay,
So the research I did said that they're false because they don't exist separate from our minds, although we think they do. And they are truly existent because if they weren't, they would just be, we could just make them anything we wanted with our minds. So it avoids seeing things from a nihilistic perspective.
You guys get that? What is it?
you have to say, explain again. They don't hear you.
Okay. So they're false because objects are false because we think they exist separately from our minds as external objects, but they're and they're truly existent because they have to exist. Otherwise, if they didn't exist as their own objects, we could do anything. Our minds can imagine them to have all these characteristics which they don't have, and so it prevents us from having a nihilistic view that things don't exist at all.
What?
I think what that's getting at is like, where is one of the
Nihilistic
ways,
views.
nihilistic.
Because what you're saying is that's the way that the Chittamatra try to deal with the extreme of non-existence, right? So,
Yes, right.
yeah. I mean, that is why I think that they say they're truly existent, but that's not what truly existent means, I think, in this case.
Were you saying because actions have consequences, that's why they're truly existent? Am I-
That was the reason I was using. But that would be, I think, a sort of a follow-up reason for that.
As the consequences to the actions, therefore it is a true accident. What did you just say?
Because if you thought the phenomena didn't exist at all, there'd be no consequences to your actions.
So we
Oh.
have karma created.
Yeah.
There'd be no karma created.
Uh-huh.
There'd be no imprints in a sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
저 가서 최준이 매번 선배나 시럽준의 시럽선은 최선을 최준이 매번 선배나 내가 다 때문에 가서 윤대는 너무 말았어. 그냥 내 사업을 때문에 대운용한테 너무 말았어. 내가 어디에다 내버려 버렸어.
오케이 대말 대대변에 샘스밀라 일본이나 대마도 차그래.
So, but according to my knowledge school, it's saying that if it is a functioning thing, it has to be true existent.
영어도 용도인자 영어라나 일본에 용도라나 동일해. 이제 대마도 버리.
And so the other power phenomena and the well-established phenomena, right? The well-established phenomena is because of Yongdobdi.
동일.
The well-established phenomena is the emptiness, and the other power phenomena is the impermanent phenomena. And so they both are truly existent.
아니 또배 따듬지 추. 네 군다도 전에 대매레스.
And then, so the merely imputed phenomena are the false existence.
So basically, I like what Bob said, but so is that why if you're, let's say, an 8th level bodhisattva and you do something, you create no karma, right? Because of that, because like, so let's say I'm thirsty. I see I'm having a hallucination, a mirage of water. I'm conscious aware, it's like, well, my potassium's off and I'm having a visual alteration. I think it's water. So maybe I don't run over it. That's what I'm at, like, it's subtle, but like, is that why once you're aware that something's an illusion, that's when you start creating karma?
The 사계벌레 소리들은 그 레사하면 차로스. 다 내가 봐줘서 샤면 차로스. 아니 다 그런 게다 답변을 가지고 다 추슈 가슈 공부를 다 추적을 추적된다. 저 뭐가 어디 추에나 상승인데 하겠다 가서 가서 제마 내가 가서
이제
민주대만 출했으면 누구 이나 다 그런 게다 주마담을 때 민주래 때 주문에 말해서 내가 가서 너무 많았어. 레상 많았어. 들으라고 그랬어.
난 드는데 원래 레마사는 거의 땅구인 통으로 그 영어디 영원 너무 말아.
Yeah, so you can say like that. You can when you say do not create karma, when you realize that, you will not go towards that, right? And then that way you will not create a karma. Yeah.
우리 직삼 진통의 대례선 대련도 링하여서 레상도 그러봐.
We think something and then we think, oh, this is how it is, and then we go towards that, and then that way we create karma with our body, speech, and mind.
바바도 아니 너무 와도 말아와서 아니 레상고 sak 말.
So the Arya beings, they don't, fall under the delusions. Therefore, they don't create new karma.
오케이 다 단다 진다 단다 리카라야 시다 너비 드네로 베날로 로 때문에 되게 로싱 올라 아니 덴베나 덴바다. 로 되는 걸로 좀 많아 그 좀 말이 되네. 대시자 요요래나 드린데들 말했어.
So, like maybe earlier when Rika said about because it is true to the valid mind, therefore it is truly existent, and because it's not true to the valid mind, so therefore it's a false existence. There's an explanation like that too, but that's not what it is in this case.
나라에 제너럴 라이트 따가는 것도 왔어.
And here is what Jennifer said is correct.
그래서 뭐 탐치 무보여봐 참저 또베 따바다 많이 봐. 랑은도 쳐봐레스. 대다 덴바 쳐봐. 랑은도 쳐봐. 덴바 쳐봐. 제드 쳐봐. 랑은 등이 쳐봐. 된다 쳐봐.
And so all the things, all the things are not merely imputed, they exist because they exist truly, and they exist, from their own side, and they exist inherently. So these are all same here.
아, 이거 된다 되네 이마다 안에 덴바 쳐봐레스. 고대 무색에 고말 간다. 고 렌데 고든 섬다고 말 고다래 고 여와든 고 덴바 쳐봐레스. 무보여서 여와도 덴바 쳐봐레스.
So therefore, you can just say like that, because it is a thing, and because it exists, therefore it is truly existent.
아, 덴바 쳐봐. 덴바도 가다. 덴바 말레스. 덴바 쳐봐레스.
Truly existent and true are different thing again, right? So this is truly existent, but not necessarily true.
아, 덴바 쳐봐레나 고 즘바레스. 덴바 말에 즘바레스.
It's truly existent, but not true. So it's why it's not true? Because it's false.
아저는 고 나한테도 통고 말레스.
Why it is false? So the way it appears and way it exists doesn't match.
이게 나도 싫어 되는 거 한거든. 싫어 때문에 맞춰봐야지. 나한테도 맞춰봐레스.
So way it appears is as an external object, right? But the way it exists is not as an external object. Therefore, they don't get along there.
네?
And therefore, it's a false. Yeah.
아, 주니도 저 덴바 쳐봐도 덴베지다. 아니 주니도 저 덴바 쳐봐레나 덴바레스.
And then it says and that all the realities are common basis of truly existent and true.
아, 내 주가는 덴바 쳐봐야 맞지바지. 영원한테 저 임바스.
And so then the realities, it's talking about the emptiness, right? That's all truly existent, right? Just like it's like we talk about other power phenomena and the world stability phenomena are all truly existent.
아는 내가 예트집에 이쪽에 또 밥에 냠자시. 나 대란 나와도 쳐봐야지. 덴바레스.
And then it's also true because here it is talking about the realities realized by the Arya beings on the Mediterranean cupolas. So whatever it appears to them, things exist in that way. Therefore, it's true.
Okay. This one, right? Okay. Next one.
Question is, what is the meaning of gross object?
That's the number of times.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, right? Earlier. Okay.
Okay. Now next week question, okay? 아들이 다시 잡사이 아니 샘점에 룰라 아니 쿠션 더기비게 숑 가와코도 레스타디 숑라는 가시.
We talked about this today, right? What was the main subject that we talked about? A very different one, mind basis of all, right? So which text explains about that?
콩으로 가요.
Which source can you find? Which source of text that explains about mind basis of all? A source of text. That's the homework.
So, okay. And what? Somebody goes out. I got to somebody. And going to tell us you too.
Excuse me, can you please repeat the question again, please?
So the mind basis of all is quoted in which scripture, you can say that. And you find a source where it explains about source of the text, where it explains about the mind basis of all.
You're talking like a root text or a sutra.
Root text or sutra, yeah, commentary,
Not that Buddha said, okay. 아니, 5분에서 쓰면 되니까 봤어.
So what is the definition of a sense direct perceiver?
According to This school.
according to this school.
According to this school, yes.
Vegetable yomar tate ko hang ji shao.
It's not explained, not written, not said in this text that we're studying on. You have to find from other texts where it explains about it.
이번엔 도대체 줄라 또 받은 많죠. 받은 다시 많죠. 이번에 뭐로 저거.
So in other school, it talks about what it says like awareness that is free of conceptuality and not mistaken. Right? That is the direct perceiver.
Okay. Okay, I think it's enough. Now I'm more confused. But in that attitude, the car galo. You matter what you consider yet to switch Kamal which is
That's the difference is something that you learned today, right? About the mind basis of all and the afflicted mind. You know, none of other schools talk about that.
the switch on Shila Gangatis.
And then also all the direct perceiver, within the continuum of the ordinary beings are all mistaken.
The eating is semi modest to car and all.
So the mental direct perceiver, but there's no valid mental direct perceiver.
Okay, like that. You got your homework?
I've got it right here.
Okay. I think we'll stop that, yeah. Okay. Okay, you guys doesn't give any answers, or Devra gives them. Devra, the answers becomes more complicated. Good, you can learn to study, you can read again, maybe you can feel something, okay? And I think next week we will finish this one. You have time also, you can read a little bit.
We'll finish.
Mine one is
Oh,
And
one.
yeah.
not the whole thing.
사람 얘기하면
Ah,
사람 남자 때문에 또
really?
내 촉사도 지워드려 촉간에 가서 싸우세요.
Okay.
Okay,
Page
make sure how you get the homework, okay? The Facebook.
Page 39, Thanksgiving non-development. Saji Perky Juxing Meto Prari Gentan Sangi Jinubite Uvaki Prokunamba Jinasha Karsho Etson Mame Kutse Rapin Cheng Shochu Bata Something Bedrin Mesasuni drawing oneself up to neck your cheeks. Idam Buddha Namakam Niryatayami. Page 43, the short long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, Savior of the snowland, teachings and transmigratory beings, which sensibly clarifies the path of God's emptiness and compassion. Your lotus in the hand, Lord Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, for all your holy wishes be fulfilled. Page 49, long life prayer for Lamas of Rinpoche. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, spreading, and preserving Majada's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Page 57, prayer dedication. Through this virtue, may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha's state, each and every sentient being without exception advance state, precious supreme Buddha mind, may unborn arise, never decline, peace forevermore. Page 75, same mark.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. Thank you,
Thank
Tamcho.
you, Dr. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes,
Good
sir.
night. Just
Night.
ready to go bed. All right, good day, Linda. Have a good day.